Just before we move on to the Celtic side of things, Keith.
Do you know what I'll do? Do you know what I'll do, Dan? To throw it out there to any Rangers fans watching. If it was your choice, what do you do with Raskin? Right. One, I think you would encourage him to come back to the training ground some point soon. Clearly, he should be on the plane going to Poland because he's in that squad. You would think, but if you were Derek McInnes, Rangers fans, would you be trying to talk him out of leaving? Regardless of what money you can bring in for him, would you try and talk him into staying? He's a really talented boy, and Rangers are crying out for really talented football players right now.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, Singing the Blues immediately says sell him. And
yeah,
there's a few people
that might be the answer for.
Hi, there's a few people in the comments saying that he's been back. Apparently, he's been back already at training. I was like you and thought he hadn't been back yet, but who knows? But if they are to sell him, Keith, what is a fair price? I've seen 20 million.
Well, put it this way: if he's back, then he's just back, and it was a hell of a long extended break that he gave himself. He was good to himself because, as I said to you, Messi's already back. Plane went to Miami. Thelo Asgard, I think, asked for about something like 5 or 6 days off after getting back with Norway. So, yeah, it points to there's obviously dynamics. There's something going on which is far from ideal. But I keep coming back to if you can get Nico Raskin sat down and have a conversation, and you feel that he's motivated and he's committed, he's a really good football player. And I think Rangers will do really well in the transfer market to find a replacement that's as talented as him in the centre of the pitch, even though they've obviously brought in a few and they're really, the squad is, I was going to say lopsided. I don't know if you can be lopsided when it's bloated in the centre. But yeah, they really need to now use what time is left available to them in this market to trim down what they need to trim down and bulk up where they need to bulk up.
Marzuno in the comments says, I saw Raskin and Greg's this morning getting a sausage roll. More news as we get it. John says, I'd take 10 million for him. Patrick says 8 million tots for Raskin. And I would just finish off the Raskin chat, Keith, by saying...
There's a silly one. That's silly.
The 8 million?
Because we're looking at a situation where Celtic fans, and I'm sure if we put it out, what do Celtic fans expect? What sort of price do they expect to achieve for Arne Engels? Then it stands to reason that Nico Raskin, who did go to the World Cup with Belgium and did play in the World Cup with Belgium and became one of their main guys, it stands to reason. I don't think you can say Arne Engels should fetch 25 million and Nico Raskin should fetch 8 to 10. That doesn't make much sense to me, but it's Scottish football, isn't it? So who knows?
We'll see you get in, I don't know, just for talking's sake, 12, 13 million. Is there still a chance, given the fact we've just said Rangers have still got a few quid on top of that to spend? Lewis Ferguson, is that dead, do you think? Is there any chance they could revive a move for him?
Revive? Look, it's something that they've been talking about. There's no doubt about that. And I'm sure that Derek McInnes would bite your hand off for Lewis Ferguson. But I think the economics of it make it really difficult. And I think in order to be able to justify that sort of spend, one, I think Rangers looked at Dow earlier this summer and felt the price was going too quickly north. And he was a player that, yes, they liked. Did they think he was worth £7 or £8 million? Evidently not. So they didn't press ahead with that one. Lewis Ferguson might come into a similar category. And again, it's, I would have to say that points to a recruitment department that's probably not doing its job right, because I think if you'd moved for Lewis Ferguson towards the end of last season, before Lewis Ferguson went to the World Cup, it would have been a lot easier and cheaper deal to do. I think £12 million might have got you Lewis Ferguson at that point. I think that subsequent to the World Cup, Italiano has left Bologna, and he was the guy that was didn't seem to be too determined to have Lewis Ferguson in his starting lineup week after week. That situation has changed at the club. They are putting a premium on him after his World Cup. So what might have been able you might have been able to get for £12 million at the tail end of last season, you're probably now going to be looking at 17 or 18 million quid. Yeah. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And Lewis Ferguson, I really rate him as a player. if a Rangers or a Celtic are going to spend 17, 18 million pounds, you're actually wanting the full package at that point, aren't you? You're really looking for a player that's going to dominate games, that's going to win games, that's going to come up with magic moments. I like Lewis Ferguson. I'm not sure that I like him for 17 or 18 million pounds. I think if Rangers had moved more swiftly, they might have been able to get him for closer to 10 or 12. That would have represented a good bit of business.
Yeah, and Marzuno makes a fair point. Do you really want to blow your whole budget on a holding midfielder? Even though he's a very good one, but it's a fair point.
But that's the point. I think if Derek McInnes is assessing what he's got at his disposal right now and what he doesn't have, I think it's pretty clear that difference makers in the final third will be the key for his happiness between now and the end of this window. Yes, he needs defensive cover. I keep coming back to it. You've got Celtic and Rangers both in the market for left back cover, and neither of them has decided to ask Motherwell about Longillo. I find it staggering. But there you go. You probably pick him up for a song relative to some of the other prices that people are paying just now. But yeah, Rangers could do with defensive cover. But I think key now for Derek McInnes is putting some bells and whistles on the attacking third of his side. He desperately needs it. He desperately needs pace. He definitely needs creativity, a bit of craft in the final third.
We've got some plenty of Celtic reaction coming in as well, Keith, off the back of last night's game. Let me hit you a few of these. Ross writes in saying Celtic were abysmal last night. Engels, Nigrin, Yang not good enough. AG goes to left back, so we don't have another left back. We seriously have major issues ahead of the Champions League qualifier. Michael says the lack of links to players for Celtic is concerning. This one from William, he says Celtic were nothing special last night. They were bang average. And Michael again actually says, I wonder what happened in the meeting with Martin and Michael Nicholson today. And just going back to the Ghedjemis stuff that we kicked off with, Keith, I mean, Ghedjemis is a player that Martin O'Neill's name-checked in 2 consecutive transfer windows now. He mentioned him personally in January, and then the other day, saying he thinks we're getting really close.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's a little bit alarming. That's a little bit of a flashing red light there. If Martin O'Neill was in front of the media towards the tail end of last week saying that he's fairly confident that they're getting really close to getting a deal done for Ghedjemis, well, how does that compute if the Italian club is looking for twice the amount that Celtic made the offer? Look, it's Celtic, it's the transfer window. You don't expect things to make much sense. We've all become accustomed to that. But that seems strange. Feels to me almost like a breakdown of communication. And if they thought that was really close, and Rangers then subsequently go in with an offer that was £2 million richer, so we're being told, and that one gets kicked out as well, then how close did Celtic really believe themselves to be, and for what reason?
I would throw in as well, Keith, if Rangers are making a bid, I mean, we know how modern transfers work. You'd probably assume, and I'm only assuming, but someone at Ghedjemis' end has encouraged them to make that bid. I don't think they just make a bid cold, hoping it gets accepted. I could be wrong, but...
No, you're probably right. You're probably right. Look, with these things, Celtic have already done it. Well, another one, Mika Bauer. I mean, that's about 2 weeks ago that Celtic, the reports were saying that the personal terms on that one were just about thrashed out, ironed out, signed and sealed. It was then just a case of negotiating with the club on a price.
Yep.
And yet, here we are 2 weeks later, and he's nowhere to be seen. So, yeah, it's not been impressive from either of the big two so far this summer. Somebody will emerge from this window with the upper hand. And, from a Rangers perspective, Derek McInnes will hope that if it's his department that get the upper hand, that will increase his chances of doing something dramatic this season. Martin O'Neill, I think he might be worried that he's looking at his department saying, well, there's no great worry here. Rangers are not pulling up any trees in the transfer market.